Welcome. I'm ahead of the curve, and today I will be reviewing Sylvia Plath's book, The Bell Jar. So, this book was published in 1963, and at first it was under a pseudonym, and actually it was published shortly before the author, Plath, actually committed suicide. And I think her suicide propelled the audience to check out the book. It gave them a motivation to read it as such. And I found that's often the case for many films and books. For example, in The Dark Knight, Heath Ledger's death as the Joker. A lot of people went to see that film because they were like, "Oh yeah, it's that dead guy. He died from making the film." All that kind of stuff. And there definitely is an element of reading a book because the author had something dramatic happen to them, and in that sense, you feel a connection with them. I don't know, or at least the background gives the book a bit more of an interesting prose behind its premises. The way she actually killed herself was what I've read. She put her head in her oven and sealed off using wet towels, I think. Sealed off the doors of her children's rooms, and so the carbon monoxide, I believe it wouldn't kill her children, so she was just killing herself. And to me, that feels like a very, I don't know, extravagant way of killing yourself, really. Because there's the mainstream ways, but there's also putting your head in an oven. Yeah, to be honest, going back to the actual book, right, and not just about her, but the book is kind of a testament to that kind of approach, I think, of suicide, because in the book she seems to be a very flamboyant character, but not in the extroverted sense. She's more. It's like she's an extrovert, but in such a way that she is in her mind, but not in her behaviour. This is actually said to be half a biographical novel, and the other half being fictitious. In that regard, then, you can kind of, well, at least I saw when I was reading it, it felt like her suicide was a testament to what her character was like in the book. And her name in the book was Esther, although she did go under a fake alias a few times when talking to men and such, just to hide her identity, I guess, to not compromise herself. Thing is, throughout the book, there is a lot of, to explain what the premise is really, which I've failed to do for the past 5 minutes probably, but it goes to show how this book kind of, it kind of gets under your skin in a way, the deepness of the story. But the book, Esther, she got a new job as an intern in New York for a magazine, and she's kind of around these people, and she's kind of opened to a culture in New York, a very busy materialistic culture. And she's kind of exposed to this, and when she goes out to these clubs, or even the people she's around, they seem to be very, I suppose, stereotypically white girl kind of thing, if you could really say it was that. But yeah, she's kind of exposed to this lifestyle, and for that reason, it felt at times kind of, I don't know, it feels weird to say this, but at times it felt like I was reading American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis, because throughout the book, she is, again, she's flamboyant in her mind, but she's kind of introverted in her actions, right? And she even says in the book, there's like a quote which is, she enjoys to watch people, her friends, make big decisions, stressful decisions, and she finds it entertaining to watch that, and that kind of separates her from the others in her daily life, because the people she's hanging around with are kind of, they're not really those who are going to think twice about what they're doing. They're just kind of going through the motions of life. But she's kind of sitting back and thinking, what is the point? And And there's even one there's even one instance where she just chucks all of her clothes out of the window, out of a balcony, and she just wonders, oh, which roof will this dress land on, and that sort of thing. So she's extravagant in I suppose she's extravagant by herself, but openly she's not. And throughout she talks very romantically, I suppose, about how much she appreciates having a bath, and how that can kind of soothe the deepness of her, I don't know, mind, in a sense. It separates her mind from her body, in some philosophical way. She didn't actually say that, but it felt like it was her form of therapy, taking a bath, and I know it is for many people as well. But the writing just made it so much more romantic, as I said earlier, but much more philosophical. And there's actually a quote that I've seen before, because I've posted her quotes before on my Instagram, and it's basically that if you expect nothing from anyone, then you won't be disappointed. And whilst that is a true statement, it's also, I don't know, in some way pessimistic, but at the same time it's true. If you don't expect anything from anyone, then you can't be disappointed. But it also means that you can't really be excited, but on the other hand, it also means that you can't be disappointed. In that very respect, it's an idea that is a double-edged sword in its nature. And as the back of the book implies, it also has dialogue on Esther going out with guys, or at least talking to guys, and kind of being seducted, but never leading anywhere or whatever. And in that sense, she's a very innocent character, because she's not really seeking what the average kind of character would. She has more of a deeper motivation, or in that way, she has no motivation, because throughout, and it goes, and it gets even deeper as it goes along, but it's like she loses reasons to wash. She loses reasons to change her clothes, or to do all these sorts of things. And of course, this is characteristic of the depressed person. And so what she is as a character is a representation of a depressed person going through the stages of kind of nihilism. And I said earlier that it reminded me of American Psycho, but and you might be wondering, well, how? And because she's not a psychopath, and she's not killing people, or whatever. And what I mean by that is basically how the details of her clothing are written, or how her inner dialogue is very deep, but extremely true and reflective of what's going around, but nobody else can see it. So we're going to go into spoilers now, so I would recommend you get the hell off here and read it for yourself, because I do think it's a very worthwhile read. An examination of a state of mind that isn't all there, but in a sense it is there. She's seeing what is happening, but nobody else wants to admit that it's happening. And it's set in the 50s, 60s, so there's a whole other element of atmosphere. How women are treated, how men are represented. There is a lot of cultural ideas being represented and exposed throughout. But anyway, we're going to go into spoilers now. So basically, she gets so bad that she thinks of ways to kill herself, and she talks about drowning, and I think she said, burning would be the worst death, and drowning would be the most peaceful one. I mean, I sincerely doubt the drowning part, because drowning doesn't really seem peaceful. But it is poetic, though, I suppose, like dying by the way that, I don't know, the earth is created, by water, and that whole cycle thing, if you want to get into philosophy. But yeah, there's a line of dialogue which, I just found. I was literally flicking through, and I found it. Right. How about I read a few lines? So, I thought I would swim out until I was too tired to swim back. As I paddled on, my heartbeat boomed like a dull motor in my ears. I am, I am, I am. That morning, I had tried to hang myself. And then she goes, along with her methodology, kind of, and, all the details. And she talks about this kind of stuff. And it's, yeah, it's harrowing in a way because her mind is deteriorating, but it's not without good reason because she's kind of like tired, I suppose. But she doesn't really know why, and that is the key symptom of depression. It's like not knowing why this is going on, I guess. And that was really interesting. Again, this is why it's such a great case study for the I don't know the symptoms and all that kind of stuff. It represents the illness to a degree that again can be harrowing, but it also can be comforting, I suppose, in a weird way. Because again, she is fairly poetic about it most of the time. She's not kind of being somber all the time. She's kind of exposing a lot of truths about life and how people are and whatever. So basically, she goes down to the attic of, I think, her house, or her parents' house. Yeah, she just takes sleeping pills. I think just pops them again and again, and then she kind of experiences darkness, blackness, and she wakes up in this kind of hospital, and they they. I mean, back in the 60s and 50s, they used all sorts of therapies like electroshock therapy, and that was basically, I mean, for some people it worked, but for most people it just left them off even worse. And so this first institution that they sent her to, it didn't solve anything, and in fact it made things worse. One of the people there, I don't know which hospital it was, maybe the first or second one, but one of her fellow inmates had a lobotomy. And yeah, you wouldn't want that to happen to you. And that isn't done anymore because, I mean, if you were cured, it would just be because you survived the ordeal, or you died. So, yeah, lobotomies weren't amazingly good. Hence, they are not in circulation at the moment in the medical industry. I believe electroshock therapy is still around, but in secluded circumstances. Although, don't quote me on that. And another book, actually, that is reminiscent of this story, of this character, is The Noonday Demon by Andrew Solomon. I think I've mentioned it before in my Myth of Mental Illness review. But if you want an anecdotal, but also researched and historical account of depression and the anatomy of the illness and how it's affected people and in different cultures and societies, and on a biological level, on a mental level, all these things. It's a lengthy book, but one of my favourites by far. So yeah, I would recommend that, The Noonday Demon by Andrew Solomon. But yeah, it reminded me of that because it was talking. There's one chapter about treatments, and he was talking about electroshock therapy and the amount of damage it can do, but also the health benefits, the very slim health benefits it can provide. And to kind of skip some stuff over to get to the main point, the book ends on a cliffhanger of sorts because she's about to go into the board meeting, which is to determine whether she is fit to go outside into the world again. And I don't mind the cliffhanger. I would have liked a more conclusive ending, but I think sometimes less is more in many aspects, especially in films or in writing such as this. I think less is definitely more a lot of the time. But yeah, I didn't plan to review the book immediately after I read it, but I felt like I had some, I don't know, I feel like I had the thoughts in my head, and I didn't actually write out any notes either. So yeah, this has all been freely done without anything to assist. But I feel like reviewing fiction, I think there's something interesting about reviewing it just from your kind of core ideas in your memory in the moment. So maybe it's worked, maybe it hasn't, depending on what you will think. But yeah, I felt like reviewing it immediately after was the most fitting, especially for this kind of book. You know, it's the kind of book that provokes a lot of thinking and reflection, and it's definitely one to reread, as it is just over about 200 pages. So yeah, I'll end it there. I think I've explored some ideas and themes. So yeah, because we've gone into some spoilers. Tell me what you think if you've read the book. So yeah, that'll be it for this review, I think. Yeah, very, very deep and profound book, I'd say, in conclusion. Definitely going to be one I'll reread at some point in the future, as there's a lot of details that I probably missed. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Instagram, Goodreads, and check out my website as well. Leave any comments or thoughts, and subscribe if you wish, and place a like if you enjoyed it, of course. And I will see you soon.